We cast a message into the cosmic ocean, a golden greeting card from humanity. But the silence of space is a hungry thing, and we never considered what might answer a dinner bell. In 1977, humanity sealed its hope inside 2 golden records and launched them into the void. Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, our twin emissaries to the stars, carried the sounds and images of our world, a greeting for any intelligent life that might find them adrift in the cosmic dark. That was the public narrative, a beautiful and optimistic gesture. But what NASA never broadcast was the secondary, unspoken mission. The real reason for the journey. The Voyagers weren't just designed to speak. They were designed to listen, to record whatever whispers they might find in the profound, crushing silence between worlds. This is the story of a recording that came back. A file that should not, by any law of physics we understand, have ever existed. The date was March 14, 2019. The time was 3:47 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. At the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, the world was asleep, but the machines were not. Deep inside a control room bathed in the cold, blue glow of monitors, Dr. Chen was finishing a 14-hour shift. She was a senior radio astronomer, a veteran of the graveyard watch, accustomed to the rhythmic, predictable flow of data from the distant edges of our solar system. The telemetry stream from Voyager 1, then over 13 billion miles from home, was usually a soothing, monotonous river of numbers. But on this night, something broke the pattern. An anomaly. A data packet that defied its own parameters. The spacecraft, a relic of the 1970s coasting through the heliopause, the very boundary where our sun's influence gives way to true interstellar space, had transmitted something it wasn't supposed to. Dr. Chen's initial report, a document I later fought for months to obtain through a Freedom of Information Act request, is written in the dry, technical language of science. It describes the data packet as acoustically structured electromagnetic emissions. To you and me, that means one thing: sound. Or, at least, a complex wave of energy that could be translated into sound. Voyager 1's plasma wave instrument, designed to measure the charged particles of the solar wind, had detected it, dutifully cataloged it, and after a 19-hour, 36-minute journey at the speed of light, delivered its impossible cargo to Earth. The resulting audio file is 18 minutes and 33 seconds long. A lifetime in the silent world of radio astronomy. Dr. Chen, a scientist of impeccable discipline, followed every protocol. She isolated the file on a secure server. She ran exhaustive diagnostic checks, searching for any possible explanation. Equipment malfunction? The logs showed Voyager's systems were nominal. Solar interference? The craft was far beyond the sun's disruptive reach. Cosmic ray corruption? The file's error-checking codes were pristine. Every test, every simulation, returned the same unbelievable result. The recording was clean. It was genuine. And according to the known laws of physics, it was utterly impossible. Space is a vacuum, a near-perfect void. Sound, as we know it, requires a medium to travel. It cannot exist in the emptiness between stars. Yet here it was. At 6:15 a.m., with the first hint of gray light touching the California hills, Dr. Chen made a decision. A choice that would be dissected for years in classified psychological evaluations. Alone in the observation room, surrounded by the silent hum of servers processing data from a dead cosmos, she slipped on a pair of noise-canceling headphones, pulled the file onto her desktop, and pressed play. Her colleagues found her 43 minutes later. She was still in her chair, staring at a blank screen. Her headphones lay on the console beside her. She was conscious, her eyes wide and unfocused. She was physically unharmed, but she could not speak. Not for 2 hours. When her voice finally returned, it wasn't to answer their questions. According to the official incident report, she repeated the same 5 words, over and over, 11 times. They're not sounds. They're coordinates. The recording was immediately slapped with a classification level so high that most of the JPL staff never even knew it existed. Dr. Chen was placed on indefinite medical leave, her career effectively over. A new team was assembled, a trio of specialists brought in to analyze the audio under the strictest containment protocols imaginable. They were forbidden from listening alone. They were forbidden from using headphones. All playback had to occur in a monitored, soundproofed environment through external speakers, with at least 2 other personnel physically present at all times. One of those specialists was Dr. James Whitmore, an audio forensics expert from MIT. His sealed testimony, leaked to me by a source I cannot name, is the first real description we have of what Voyager heard. He describes the recording's opening as an unremarkable hiss of deep space static. It's the background radiation of the universe, the sound of creation's echo. But at the 47-second mark, something changes. The static, he testified, begins to organize. It doesn't get clearer, it becomes structured. A pattern emerges from the chaos. A rhythm. He described it as sounding like breathing, but not organic breathing. The intervals were all wrong. An impossibly long, slow inhalation that lasted for seconds, followed by a sharp, staccato exhalation that sounded like data packets being shredded. It was the sound of a living machine. Then, at the 2-minute mark, the vocalization begins. Dr. Whitmore struggled to find a word for it. It wasn't speech. It wasn't music. It was, in his words, an intelligent pattern of unknown origin. It wasn't a voice as we would recognize it, yet it felt like one. It conveyed intent. It had a syntax, a structure, a purpose. You can hear something trying to communicate, he testified. But the truly terrifying part is that you can feel yourself, on some primal, pre-verbal level, beginning to understand it. The analysis team worked for 6 days. By the 4th day, the psychological toll was becoming undeniable. All 3 members began reporting identical, recurring nightmares. They dreamt of vast, empty spaces, of falling through an infinite blackness towards something immeasurably large and ancient and patient. They dreamt of mathematics that felt alive, of equations that coiled back on themselves, violating the very fabric of causality. Dr. Rachel Morse, the team's linguist, began to suffer from what the official medical report logs as acute glossolalia episodes. She would abruptly begin speaking in a torrent of phonetic fragments that resembled no known human language, ancient or modern. During one 8-hour session, she filled 63 pages of a legal pad with intricate, looping symbols. The script bore no resemblance to any writing system on Earth. When her colleagues showed her the notebook later, she had no memory of writing it, but she could, with a chilling calmness, still read it. The project was abruptly suspended on the 7th day. Dr. Whitmore, Dr. Morse, and the 3rd analyst were removed from duty and subjected to months of psychological debriefing. Dr. Whitmore quietly resigned from his tenured position at MIT 3 months later and retired from public life. Dr. Morse took a low-profile teaching job in rural Vermont and has, to this day, refused all contact from former colleagues. The 3rd analyst, whose name is redacted in every document, suffered a complete psychotic breakdown and was permanently institutionalized. But the recording remained. NASA, faced with a cognitive hazard, a sound that could seemingly dismantle the human mind, couldn't bring themselves to delete it. The implications were too profound. This was potential first contact, the single most important discovery in all of human history. So, a second team was formed. Their operational guidelines, detailed in internal memos, were called Enhanced Cognitive Safety Protocols. This time, no one would ever hear the full 18 minutes. The file was digitally sliced into 99 segments, each under 2 minutes long. Different analysts were assigned different segments. No individual was ever exposed to more than 6 minutes of cumulative audio, and crucially, the segments were never, ever played in their original sequence. This fragmented, cautious approach only deepened the horror. Each isolated segment contained what Dr. Patricia Volkov, the new project lead, called cascading information structures. The audio was a dense web of mathematical patterns, geometric progressions, and what the team's computers identified as three-dimensional spatial coordinates, encoded directly into the frequency shifts of the sound itself. But the most disturbing discovery was what Dr. Volkov termed the responsive element. The recording appeared to change based on who was analyzing it. When two different analysts were exposed to the exact same 2-minute segment, they reported hearing different underlying patterns. The static would subtly reorganize itself. The breathing rhythm would shift. The structured vocalizations would emphasize entirely different mathematical sequences. It was as if the recording wasn't a static artifact. It was alive. It was adapting. It was learning, optimizing its transmission for the specific consciousness of the receiver. Dr. Volkov's final report, issued just before the project was terminated for good, contains a single, terrifying sentence, written without further context or explanation. She wrote, "The recording is not a message being received. It is a message actively receiving. We are not the audience. We are the signal." On August 3rd, 2019, the project was officially shuttered. The 18-minute file was placed in indefinite quarantine on a single, air-gapped server in a secure, subterranean facility at JPL, locked behind 3 layers of biometric authorization. It was meant to be the end of the story. It was only the beginning. In December 2019, something strange began to happen. Amateur radio operators, hobbyists scanning the sky from their basements and backyards across 6 different countries, started picking up a phantom signal. It was on Voyager 1's transmission band, but the official mission logs showed the spacecraft was silent during those times. The signals were sporadic, lasting only a few seconds. When analyzed, they contained fragments of the recording, an echo, a ghost in the machine. NASA issued denials, blaming everything from solar flares to elaborate hoaxes. But the signals persisted. And then, the listener reports began to surface. On fringe internet forums, in encrypted chat rooms, through the global community of amateur radio enthusiasts, people started sharing their experiences. They had caught the signal. They had recorded it. And they had listened. Most described the dreams first. The same vast, empty spaces. The same sensation of falling endlessly towards something that was aware of them. But others reported more severe effects. Temporal dissociation, where hours would melt away in what felt like seconds. Auditory hallucinations of that rhythmic, mechanical breathing, heard in the dead of night, in perfectly silent rooms. And then there was what they called the mathematics. They would see equations shimmering at the edge of their vision like heat haze. Intricate, complex expressions they knew, with a certainty that defied logic, described locations. Coordinates to somewhere else. In February 2020, a Reddit user with the handle DeepListener77 posted a story that has since become legendary in these hidden communities. He was a radio hobbyist from the Pacific Northwest. He'd recorded a 7-minute fragment of the signal during a Perseid meteor shower. He listened to it once, through old speakers in his workshop. His post is a harrowing, minute-by-minute account of what he experienced. He writes about the breathing first. How, within 60 seconds, its unnatural rhythm began to sync with his own. He felt his own. Heart began to pound in time with a deep, subsonic pulse buried beneath the static. By minute 5, he felt a profound sense of spatial inversion, as if he were no longer in his body, but observing himself from a great, impossible distance. At minute 12 of his own experience, though the recording was shorter, he claims he finally understood. The coordinates weren't for a place in our universe. They were for a location in a different geometry. Places that exist at right angles to our reality, pressed up against it like a face against a pane of glass. Places separated not by distance, but by a dimensional barrier so thin it's barely a barrier at all. His post ends with a paragraph that has been deleted by moderators 100 times, but always reappears. "I know where Voyager really is now," he wrote. "It's not in interstellar space. It crossed over. It's in the place the coordinates describe. And it's not alone there. They're using it. They're using its antenna to broadcast themselves across the boundary. And every time someone on Earth listens, the boundary gets thinner. We're not receiving a message. We are being measured. We are being mapped. We are being prepared." Deep Listener 77 never posted on Reddit again. His account has been dormant ever since. But his story was not unique. A pattern emerged, consistent across languages and cultures, from anyone who claimed to have heard the signal. The breathing, the dreams of falling, the mathematics, and always that inescapable feeling of being observed through the audio, of a vast, patient intelligence on the other side of the signal listening back. NASA's official position remains one of absolute denial. Dr. Sarah Chen, the first to hear the sound, resigned from JPL in 2020 and has vanished from the scientific community. But there is one final, terrifying piece of the puzzle. In June of 2022, Voyager 1 suffered a major telemetry malfunction. For 4 straight months, it broadcast what NASA publicly dismissed as impossible, garbled data. The spacecraft's attitude control system was sending back readings that were pure nonsense. Except they weren't. A former JPL engineer, speaking anonymously, confirmed what many in the fringe communities already suspected. The garbled data, when properly decoded, formed patterns. And those patterns, when mapped, were coordinates. The same coordinates Dr. Chen had uttered. The same coordinates Dr. Morse had scribbled in her fever state. The coordinates to that other place. For 4 months, Voyager 1 broadcast not a message, but a map, an invitation, expanding from its antenna in a sphere of pure information, traveling at the speed of light. NASA announced they fixed the glitch in September 2022. But the signal had already been sent. What terrifies me, what keeps me awake at night, is this. The Voyager probes were built to last 5 years. They have lasted for nearly 50. They are powered by decaying plutonium cores that should have gone cold a decade ago. By every engineering metric, they should be silent, frozen relics. But Voyager 1 keeps transmitting. It keeps functioning. It keeps listening. I have never heard the recording myself. I've only studied the evidence it left behind, the shattered careers, the leaked documents, the frantic warnings from those who have. After all this time, I can only arrive at one conclusion. The recording is not from interstellar space. It is not something Voyager discovered. It is something that discovered Voyager. Something ancient and vast that found our little tin can, understood its purpose, and turned it into a weapon. A tool to reach back to its creators. We sent out a message hoping to say hello. And something has answered. Not with friendship, but with a signal that bypasses language and logic and speaks directly to the architecture of consciousness. A signal that doesn't tell us about itself, but learns everything about us. Every time someone listens, every time those fragments are captured, every time a new person has the dreams, it's not an echo. It is an ongoing, active process. The boundary gets thinner. The signal gets stronger. I will not tell you not to search for it. The fragments are out there, on the dark corners of the internet, waiting. But I will leave you with the only other thing Dr. Chen said before she disappeared. The coordinates aren't places, she warned. They're invitations. And every listener sends a response. The mission continues. Far from home, far from the light and warmth of any star, a machine built by human hands 45 years ago drifts through the endless night. It should be cold and dead, but something is keeping it warm. Something is keeping it running. Something is keeping it transmitting. After all, in the silence of space, 18 minutes and 33 seconds is barely a greeting. Barely enough time to introduce yourself and wait to see who answers the call.